as we said, today we speak about the Drone Harmony mobile app. So this is a brand new application for Android. As we've started Drone Harmony quite a few years ago now, we actually started with a mobile application and with an Android mobile application. And this is the part of the Drone Harmony platform that's kind of the oldest and the most mature. And at some point along the way, about 2 years ago, we have already acquired quite a lot of feedback and information from all of you users around the world about how you're using Drone Harmony or what you would like to change in the way that the workflow works, as well as what other features you want to see in the platform. And roughly 2 years ago, we started working kind of on a brand new app from scratch that would replace the original Drone Harmony mobile app, Android mobile app. And today we're happy to say we're releasing this mobile app. It's based on the same, of course, philosophy of Drone Harmony on our scene-centered workflow, but it's a refactored UI UX. Has many of the things that we received as feedback from customers in the last years. And today I'm happy to present to you this application in some detail. So to those of you who are new to Drone Harmony, what is the platform? So the platform is for data acquisition using drones, and it's composed of several components. We have a web app, we have mobile apps, Android and iOS. Of course, this webinar is focused on the new Android app, and we have a cloud that links all of these applications together. The platform is integrated with off-the-shelf hardware. In particular, DJI hardware is almost fully supported, pending the availability of SDKs, of course, and I'll touch upon this a bit more later on during the presentation, especially as it pertains to the new Android app that enables easier usage of some of the enterprise hardware of DJI. Data acquisition, by this will of course mean flight planning and flight execution, capturing data. The platform is designed to automate and streamline this process. We address various use cases on the market, and I'll touch upon some of the use cases as well towards the end of the presentation, but let's dive into kind of the main topic of the presentation, which is the Android app. So recently we've released also an iOS app. As I said, Android was kind of our first product, but recently we've also released a Drone Harmony for iOS. And a small comment before I jump into the Android part of it is that we have a new upcoming update for the iOS app that will add new features, especially map tools that were not available yet on the first release of the iOS app. And of course, more is coming. Towards the end of the year, we expect our iOS app to be in many ways on par with our Android app as far as flight planning, flight execution is already in there, and all of the other features that you will see today. You will also see that kind of the interfaces and the looks of the apps are almost identical, except for kind of mild variations between iOS and Android. So our goal also with the Android app was to unify the way that all of our products look like as much as possible, make it all look like you're working with the same software regardless of the platform you're using it on, whether it's desktop, Android, or iOS. So what are our learning goals for today? So of course, we'll make an introduction to the new app, Android version 2. We'll touch upon the main changes in the user interface and what are some of the new features. We will discuss a little bit the differences between V1 and V2 to those of you who are familiar with the first version of the application. And we'll conclude with looking at making some outlook on how both the Android and some other parts of the Drone Harmony platform are about to change throughout the rest of 2022. Before I go in to the app itself and I share my screen from our mobile device, just want to mention that one of the main things that we geared the new app for is really the enterprise-grade drones of DJI. And in particular, the new app enables really seamless control and flight planning for the M300 platform, as well as its main payloads, the P1 and H20 and H20T. We are working on additional integrations. As you know, this drone is a platform that is able to carry a large variety of payloads, including LiDAR sensors and high-end RGB sensors. So all of these things are also in the works, and we're bringing out some new announcements in the coming weeks and months for additional integration. So we really gear this application to this high-end segment of the market, and make sure that they run very smoothly on these platforms. In particular, this means all of the DJI built-in screens will have a very, very simple install procedure. To those of you who are familiar with previous install procedures on smart controllers, etc., it was often either impossible or quite clunky and had some issues. Now it's really just download an APK, put it on the device and install it, and it just runs. Another thing to mention is that with that, we also implemented additional flight execution technologies, the newest from DJI, as well as something else we call virtual stick, which enable us unlimited mission length. So those of you who are familiar with mission uploads in the middle of long missions, those things will all go away for M300 drones as of the release of this new application. Okay, so let's now dive into the Drone Harmony mobile app version 2. So I'll now stop my screen share from my computer and switch over to the mobile device. Okay, so welcome to the Drone Harmony Android version 2. So we'll go through various aspects of the new mobile app. In particular, we'll talk about the interface and how the interface has changed with respect to the original Drone Harmony app. We will talk about some of the workflow aspects that have changed, how we organize the information, as well as some of the new features. So let's start by looking a little bit around at the interface. So one key feature that is common to all Drone Harmony products is the fact that we have both a map and a 3D view. And in the new mobile app, in the new Drone Harmony mobile app, those two views are kind of always visible and always available. And in this screen that you see here, we see a scene in Drone Harmony, and we see it in map view right now. But on the bottom left, we have the 3D view. And to switch to the 3D view, we just tap on the view, and then we are in 3D view. And we can navigate around the 3D view, and we still have a visual on the map view. If I connect the drone, which I will do in a few minutes, and show you how a connected drone situation looks like, you will also see the FPV view. So we'll see this in a few minutes. So in that sense, kind of the first big change in the interface is how we are always we can always see all relevant views at the same time. You can think about the FPV view is definitely relevant to see even kind of in a thumbnail situation sometimes, or sometimes when I keep an eye on the map view or the 3D view while we're performing some planning. So this is now possible. And as I said, to change between the views, we just tap on them, and this switches from one view to the other. Another change that we've made is we reorganized some of our map tools. We cleaned the interface. There's fewer things on the main part of the interface, and some of the tools are now placed in more natural ways. So in particular, some of the common map tools are available in the top left, being the polygon tool, line tool, etc. They were in the old app in a similar place, but the undo redo buttons have now their own dedicated space, and they remain there everywhere we go. So in Drone Harmony, when you perform an action and you're unhappy with it, you can always undo it. Those buttons are available here in the top left of the screen. Our access to map tools, namely navigation on the map, changing map layers, etc., is now on the top right of the screen. And in particular, if I tap, for example, on the map icon, I have this map selection view opening on the bottom right. So generally, you'll see that everything that's kind of menus will now appear here at the bottom right part of the screen, so that we have as little clutter in other parts of the screen. We can work with it really to see our plans, see our missions, etc. Now that I've opened the map view, you will see one first difference between this app and the previous app as far as features. So now, differently from the previous app, we don't only have Google Maps, we also have Here Maps. Here is another map provider that's integrated. And all of those map layers from here are also available for all of our customers. The significance of this is not only to have more map layers, but also that we don't have to rely necessarily on Google Maps to be able to work with the application. That's very significant for smart controllers, which don't come with Google Maps pre-installed. So in particular, when you install Drone Harmony on the smart controller, you will now have Here Maps as a default. And if you want to go the extra mile and also include Google Maps, then you have to do a few more steps. But basically, Here Maps will just always be there, regardless of where you install Drone Harmony. Google Maps are available on my Android device, which is not a smart controller right now, because it's a standard Android device. It's not a smart controller. But if I would install on a fresh smart controller, I would only have Here Maps, and I could install Google in addition if I wanted to. So this is an important difference, and of course, that's significant for integration and as an additional set of layers. Of course, different maps are have different use cases in different parts of the world. Of course, the app is built for landscape and portrait mode. Let me quickly demonstrate it. I don't know if I have a rotation here. Yes, I do. So this is the landscape version of the application. One thing you'll see is that the bottom menu just collapses to a panel on the left. And in landscape view, which is how it will work from now on, we have the panel on the bottom right. Okay, so those are some aspects related just to the UI, how things are organized on the map. And you will see that kind of a lot of emphasis has really been put on both providing more visual information, as well as on cleaning up kind of clunky aspects of the user experience in previous versions of the application. So let's go from here a little bit towards kind of where do you find the key concepts in the Drone Harmony mobile app and the new Drone Harmony mobile app. So the key concepts in Drone Harmony are plans, flights, and the plan catalog. So the plan catalog is our access to all of the automation features in Drone Harmony. When we plan a new flight, we go to plan catalog. Then once we have a plan, we have it in a list of existing missions. And then when we execute the mission, we have some form of a log of that mission. So some form of recording, some sort of summary of the way that the mission was executed, and that is a flight. So all of these three concepts used to be in different places in the past, and now they're all organized in one clean place. So on the bottom right, we have basically access to the menu, which gives us all of these tools. So the first one being the plan catalog. So in the plan catalog, you will see that those who are familiar with the web app, you will see that this looks exactly the same as the web plan catalog now. And this is, of course, intentional. As I said before, what we like to achieve is we like that people working with Drone Harmony, whether on the mobile or on the web, will always have the impression that they're working with the same software, with the same tools, that they don't need to learn necessarily many different things and have different, slightly different workflows in different places. So in particular, the plan catalog is kind of unified in some sense with the web app. There are still some differences, minor differences that will be ironed out with future releases, but for the most part, this is exactly the same plan catalog now. It also looks the same, so you can recognize the icons from the web app maybe, and that's one aspect. One big difference between the current mobile app and the previous versions is that terrain-aware flight planning has now also been made available in the mobile app. So previously, the new Drone Harmony terrain-aware flight planning capabilities were only available in the web app. You would plan a mission in the web, you would execute it on a mobile device. In this case, if we have internet connection and access to our terrain data in the cloud, we can plan missions in the mobile app as well. So this is this tab that I showed you now. This is, again, exactly the same missions that we have for terrain or flight planning in the web are now also available in the Drone Harmony mobile version 2. Now let's go on to missions. So missions are plans that we've planned for our site, for our inspection site. And that's the next item here on the bottom right. So as I open it up, I see that I have 3 missions planned here. One called T60, and that's a perimeter type mission. One called facade inspection, and that's a manual waypoints type mission, and 3 roofs, which is a top-down type mission. So first thing to notice is that we have much more information about what the mission is about. We see its name, not just an icon representing it, and we see the type of mission. And you can imagine that this list grows longer and longer, and it's a scrollable list as we have more missions in the site. There's, of course, no limit to how many missions you can have on one site. And this way of organizing the missions is, in our opinion, much better, and from our experience, allows for much more complicated workflows if need be. Of course, all these things are selectable. So if I tap here on any one of the missions, I can select it. And then you'll see that the same mission has appeared on the map. So now it appeared on the map. You see the dotted line, this mission. Now I can tap on it, and I have access to its low-level details, like the single waypoints and so on. Of course, if I had my drone connected and if I were in the field, I could also execute this mission. So selecting a mission gives us access to edit options or to flight execution, of course. I can also select more than one mission at a time and visualize the map. And for example, I can delete the mission. So there's various things I can do now with this interface that I could not do with the previous interface of missions. So now that we have one mission selected, we can also start touching a little bit lower level details, just to give you an impression of how they work. So now I've chosen a couple of waypoints. Those of you who are familiar with map tools in Drone Harmony, you can select waypoints, you can move them around. Of course, there's a lot of low-level tools. They are also available here. Most of the tools for touching the different waypoints, the different things, will appear on the top right of the screen. So in particular, you see that I now selected 2 waypoints. And if I want to move them, I can tap on the move icon, and I can then start moving them around. I can also tap a second time on the move icon. I can move them together. And the same for the rotation tool, which is the next one here on the right. I can tap, I can rotate a single waypoint, or I can tap twice, and then I have a rotation of all. Let's undo those actions by tapping on the 2 buttons. And now we're back to the original mission. So that's a small deviation to map tools, but I think it's worthwhile seeing how those things look and feel in the Drone Harmony interface as it is now. So let's unselect this mission, and let's move on to the next item on the list here, and those are flights. So as we said, we have plan catalog where we plan our missions. Once we plan the mission, they appear in the missions. Then we can take this mission and flight. And as we fly a mission, we generate so-called flights. So flights are essentially, think about them as kind of flight executions. They have metadata about the images that we've collected. They record the actual trajectory that was flown, elements of the telemetry information, etc. So let's open the flights tab. And how is the flights tab organized? So it's organized in kind of what's the natural way would be for something like this, and that's by time. So when did we execute what flight, what mission? So you would see here that I executed today, actually 2 missions. So the date is today, and the mission name is T60. So I know which mission it was, and I can tap on it, and I can visualize it. So in particular, I see on the map here the trajectory that was flown. You see it was part of that mission. And I can either delete it, or I can just look at it, visualize it. And in the future, there will of course be various other options as we build these features up further. So when we execute a mission, a flight object appears. Again, this is no longer cluttering kind of the main interface. It's kind of stored here away in the nice interface here on the right side. So what is the next item on the list? This is access to essentially the menu with the rest of the features. So in particular, here we have access to site storage. Of course, in Drone Harmony, we work in a single site on the mobile app, and we have many sites stored on our cloud. Perhaps we make one inspection in this area today, another inspection in another area tomorrow. We can store all of these things in the form of sites within the Drone Harmony cloud. And the access to the site storage, what used to be the kind of general menu on the top left, is now here in the menu bottom right. And this is called site storage. That's the first item here on the list. I can, of course, save the current site, or I can load the site. So let's look at how the load site menu looks like. So the load menu has, of course, a list of the existing sites. Sites can be tagged, as you know, but the main thing that's different here is that for those of you who are like me and you have a lot of sites and use them in different places and all the time, you can, this list can become long, it can become a bit difficult to keep track of those things. So one thing that we've added is a possibility to preview a site before you need to load it. So let's look at the site. So for example, this site here. So you see that I tapped on one of the sites that I could load from the cloud, but it's not yet loaded. It just gives me a preview. So I can kind of quickly visually verify, yes, this is the area that I'm interested in, this is the site I want to load. You can preview, of course, as usual in 2D and 3D. As you can see, this was a terrain flight planning kind of use case. And if I'm happy with it, I can now click load and it will load this site. So let's do that, load site, and we have the site loaded. So this kind of quick preview allows you to kind of manage and keep track of longer, let's say, lists of missions and have selected the right parts for that. So those are a little bit the main aspects of kind of the high-level usability. Of course, Drone Harmony Mobile version 2 is built on the same basic workflow, scene-centered workflow. We devise a scene within the Drone Harmony interface. We plan missions for that scene. So we would have either terrain data in some area and we'd plan a mission for that, or we would have a scene with some buildings or something like that. We'd plan a mission for the model of the buildings that we have in the app. So that part of the workflow hasn't changed. What we've changed is a lot of the user experience aspect, the organization of it, and just made the app stronger in the sense that it can now deal with more use cases, things like terrain aware and so on. So the next thing I want to do is I actually want to connect the drone and see how that looks like. So how does it look like when we have a drone connected? So for this, let's go back to the other site. That was this one, I think. Yes. So let's simulate a flight here. Of course, I'm in the office, but I can simulate a flight. And for this, I'll now quickly turn on my drone that's actually here connected. And that will take me a quick second. So as you can see, as I turned the drone on, we start seeing some things appear. So I have more than one app here that could use the drone. So we have our hardware connected. Takes another second or so. Again, because I have more than one app here running. So I'll probably just close the other Drone Harmony app that I have in the background. And reconnect. Okay. So now we have it. So now we start seeing now we start seeing how the interface changes when we have a drone connected. So in particular, we see that we have another view that has appeared on the bottom left of the screen, and that's the FPV view. And this is what we said before about when we have a drone connected, we have, instead of just two, we have the three different kind of principal views, totally interchangeable within the app. So we have the map view, we have the 3D view, and we also have the FPV view, which is the new view here that is available because I have my drone connected. So let's switch to the FPV view. You'll be able to see from the view of the drone camera the beautiful office in which I sit. So this is now the FPV view. And as I switch between them, it's totally seamless. I don't have to go through different parts of the interface. All of the views are always visible to me. And whenever I want to increase one of the three, I just tap on the corresponding one and it becomes the main view. The other two snap back to the bottom left part of the screen. Of course, a lot of what you would expect to appear on the screen does appear on the screen. On the top, we have the telemetry bar that tells me all the information about the health, the current state of the drone, battery level, number of satellites. Of course, I'm in the office, I have 0 satellites right now, etc., etc. So this is kind of the state that you should expect when you connect the drone. Now, the next thing we can do is we can try to simulate the flight. So for this, one thing that sometimes will happen, and something that's worthwhile knowing, is that this menu here on the bottom right, it's actually collapsible. So this is what you saw now. It's collapsible. It collapses in certain situations where it's not natural to have it in front of you. For example, in FPV view. In those cases, this menu goes away. It sometimes stays away. There is a button on the bottom right to retrieve it. You can also collapse it manually if you want to. If you want to really have nothing on the screen other than the map and the tools that are on the top. So to execute the mission, we will now choose one mission in our arsenal of missions here. Because I'm in the office, I will of course not physically execute a mission. I will simulate the flight execution, but this will allow us to walk through the launch dialog. The launch dialog has changed also quite significantly, and a lot has changed in the way that flight execution works. And I want to touch upon those things now. So before we execute this mission, I'll actually start a simulation of our drone. So that will kind of fool the app into thinking that the drone is actually out there in the field, and we'll be able to pretend that we're actually flying the drone and see how the workflow looks like if you would really fly the drone. So that might take a bit more time for the drone to start sending commands. Okay, so I've started the simulation, and as I've selected already a mission, I could start executing the mission. So this is the beginning of the launch dialog. So for those of you, again, who are familiar with Drone Harmony's launch dialog in the past, this will be a bit different from the other launch dialog. We have organized it in a new way, also to reflect the new flight execution capabilities, but also to based essentially on the feedback that we've received from thousands of users throughout the years, and try to make it a bit more organized and give a kind of a safer feeling to the pilot that's executing flights. So first stage is kind of a health check for the drone. It tells me that we're in P mode, that we have 16 satellites. Of course, we're simulating, so we're telling the drone that it has 16 satellites. We have good satellite fix and some other information like the capacity of the SD card. As we continue on, we come to one of the main additional differences within the new Drone Harmony app versus the other versions of drone harmony. So here, this is about flight mode, flight execution mode. So there's two ways how drone harmony can execute your flights. One is called waypoint-based, and the other one is called virtual stick-based. There are several important differences between the two, and they enable slightly different features, and it's important to know the details. The key differences are outlined here within the launch dialog. So many of you will have flown previous versions of drone harmony and would not have known that different missions are flown with different flight modes. The reason for that is, again, because different use cases require slightly different things from flight execution. What we've done here is we've made it kind of transparent to you what actually happens and what you need to be aware of if you're using one flight mode versus the other. So kind of one flight mode is the waypoint flight mode, which uses DJI's waypoint technology as well in the background, and it has certain advantages and disadvantages, and they're listed here. So in particular, waypoints enable us to fly very far and not worry as much about radio signal, because this flight mode allows you to fly out of radio signal and still follow a mission and return back. This is very important if you're flying very, very, very far, making very large mapping missions, or even if you're flying not so far, but you're afraid that you might lose signal along the way. In addition, it has some impact on the smoothness of the flight, again, because it's meant for slightly different use cases, it uses slightly different technology. There are certain restrictions, however, and those are related to DJI's intrinsic restrictions related to waypoint counts, etc. Many of you know these things. If you're flying any drone other than the M300, you will have restrictions on how many waypoints you can upload at a time. So if you execute a large mission, you will need to experience re-uploads. So the app will upload one batch, execute it, then the drone will hover in the air, wait for the next batch to be uploaded, etc. This is a disadvantage of the waypoint flight. And there are some other disadvantages that are listed here. They're always here. So in case of doubt, you can always look at this list and understand what is better for your specific case. So virtual stick is very different. It's a mode in which the app continuously controls the drone. It's not a mode in which you upload the mission and let the DJI firmware fly the drone for you. So in this case, you need to always maintain radio signal. So flying very, very far out is not going to be a good idea, or at least it will lose potentially signal, and then an RTH will be triggered at some point. So you want to be aware of these things. However, this flight mode enables certain other things. In particular, no restrictions on the number of waypoints. So if you believe you won't have any issues with signal, there's no reason to not use it, as well as other features like panoramas are available in this flight mode. So it's important to choose the flight mode. And in case of doubt, we recommend to choose waypoints, because that's something that you've probably been using in the past and has worked well for you. And if you have questions, please post them or contact us in case of doubt. So that's the first kind of main difference. Every drone that enables waypoint flights can now be chosen between virtual stick and waypoints. Some drones don't have this choice. Some drones only have virtual stick flight mode. As an example, the Mini 1 or the Air 2S. Those are two drones of DJI which don't have waypoints technology implemented at all. So they will always be executed in virtual sticks. The good thing, when you go through the launch dialog, the app will tell you that, and of course, will warn you of what are the risks of flying an automated mission with any app, for that matter, with this drone. In case you have a drone that can do both, you'll be able to choose. So the next screen in the launch dialog is about certain important aspects of the flight execution, like flight speed. It gives you estimates on how much time it will take to execute the mission within this flight speed. And it will also tell you how many uploads you need. Remember that we talked about different uploads in case you're flying waypoints, so it will tell you how many re-uploads you expect you probably. So we can adjust the flight speed, flight execution, and this is the slider here. And very importantly, we can also choose the capture mode here. So the capture modes, again, were reorganized a little bit to make it cleaner and clearer what we're actually capturing and how to set the right mode. So the first thing is what actually are we capturing? So there are three options. Either we're capturing photo data, or we're capturing video data, or we're not capturing anything. In some cases, it's useful to not capture anything because maybe we're flying a payload that has its own triggering technology, like a LiDAR sensor. So we would want to actually choose nothing in that case. Also, we might want to use either a stopping mode or a not stopping mode or a time interval mode. So just a quick reminder, a stopping mode means you stop at every waypoint, shoot, continue, and stop at the next waypoint, shoot the picture, continue, etc. Non-stopping is you just fly through the waypoints and capture the images. If it's an image capture mode, capture the images as the drone flies through the waypoints without stopping. Of course, the advantage of the latter is that it's faster. The disadvantage, often you get motion blur, often you get lower quality images. In time interval is if you want to set a timer and say capture an image every so and so seconds. If we choose that option, of course, an option to choose a time interval pops up. If we choose video, for example, we don't have any of these options. So there's no confusion. We know that in case of video, we just capture video from the video, and there is no stop, non-stop. It's all kind of continuous flight given speed. Okay, so let's keep it at photos non-stopping for now. Then we have, in addition, certain safety features that we can set. One important one is, of course, the RTH altitude. So in contrast to previous versions of the app, where you couldn't really set the RTH altitude within the app, you had to do it in DJI. Here you can actually do it within the app. So you can set an RTH altitude. This can be any number between any reasonable number. You would always want to think about the highest point you would want to fly above when you set RTH altitude above ground level. It's very important to choose this cautiously and in consideration of the environment that you're flying. Mission aid and action can be RTH if you just want to immediately trigger RTH when you finish the mission, or you want to auto land in the last waypoint, or you want to hover. Again, the choice is yours. And what happens when the signal is lost? So if you're flying waypoint mode, then you have a choice between aborting the mission or continuing the mission. So you fly out of the signal range, the remote controller is no longer in touch with the drone, maybe because it's behind the building that you're inspecting or something like that. But you can choose to continue the mission using the uploaded batch of waypoints. So again, for a drone like the M300, which no longer has limits on what is the length of the waypoint mission that can be uploaded to. For this, it's a very powerful option because you sometimes might want to just upload a huge or long mission, one which goes through obstacles, and know that it's not just gonna abort the mission every time the signal will be lost for one reason or another. Of course, in most use cases, you should not worry and shouldn't, let's say, desire that the signal will be lost, but it's just the reality that sometimes this happens, especially in use cases where we're inspecting or mapping something large. So those are the options that we have here. And then we go to the next and last option or last screen in the launch dialog, and that's a visualization of both our current scene. And this is the scene that we have, as well as various resume options. So of course, in some cases, missions are large and we cannot execute them on a single battery. So it's very important to allow resuming missions that have been flown up to a certain waypoint and need to be continued from the next waypoint. So previously, the resume functionality was a bit less intuitive. It relied on the flights that you had, etc. They were available somewhere on the interface, but not here. You could only click on resume or not resume. That was the options that you had. Here, you have a list of resume options, and you can choose where to resume from. You can choose to start from scratch, or you can choose to resume from a certain one flight that you completed, or a second flight. So you have a choice. And this choice is available by tapping on this resume menu, and it gives you the options. So in this case, you see that I either choose to start from scratch, choose none, or I can choose this flight that I executed 6% of the mission, and that was today at 3:30. So this is the second resume option. So if I choose this one, the flight will actually resume from the next waypoint not visited in this specific flights. So let's start from scratch in this case, and we tap on launch. So as I tap on launch, we see that there is a basically a progress, let's say, screen that shows us the different things that are happening. What is the RTH altitude was set properly? Now we're uploading a mission, and the reason we're uploading a mission is because we selected waypoints and not virtual stick that would not have an upload. And now we completed this part, and we are back to our main screen, where we have kind of the view on how flight execution looks like. So you can see on the bottom right, we have the pause icon that has appeared. We can pause the mission, or we can follow the flight execution in any one of our three interfaces. So in particular, we can go onto the 3D view and see how our drone is flying through the 3D scene. You see this red column that is flying up from its takeoff location and now start panning and flying towards the first waypoint. We can look at it in map view. So now I'm switching to map view, and you will see how the icon is, the drone is indicating to me both the direction of the drone, where it currently is, and how it's flying through space. And we can, of course, look at FPV view. So this is now FPV view that I'm switching to. I'm trying to be slow enough to allow Zoom to project the different actions that I'm making. So one thing you see that the drone is already starting to tilt its gimbal down because the first waypoint is slightly tilted gimbal. So this is FPV view. So in any moment in time, we have access to all of the three views, also in flight execution. On the map view, you see we're always centered at where the drone is actually right now in the screen. So those are the three views. So we can, so now the drone stares straight at my table. So you see a white screen there. And those are the main aspects of flight execution. And you see how the drone is flying through its waypoints, capturing the data, and so on and so forth. If I tap on pause, the flight execution will pause, not stop. And I can resume it. I can press on resume, or I can press on stop, and that will just terminate the flight execution. Of course, I can always terminate it by changing modes on the remote controller. And I remind everybody that in case of doubt, if you're in a situation where you think the drone is going to do a dangerous maneuver, you should always use the hardware stop. You should only use the software stop in any software that you're using. If it's not a situation of danger for your drone, for anything around it in the environment, but rather if you just want to pause, have a look at something, zoom in on the map, understand if the mission is exactly what you intend. This is the use case for using this. Okay, so now let's actually stop flight execution. And see what let's see what we get. Go back to that view. Apologies for that. I think that my tablet is suffering a little bit from having so many softwares like Zoom running on. So okay, so we looked at flight execution, and this is now a good time to go back to our flights menu here and see that this flight we just executed appeared here as another flight. You will see this green trajectory appearing in the map view, and this is now a new flight. Of course, the corresponding data will be uploaded to the cloud, and it will They'll also be available in Drone Harmony Web for review. In this case, in Drone Harmony Mobile, at the moment, it's available for review of the map. And in the Drone Harmony Web app, you can also review it in 3D, look at the metadata, and so on. Okay, I think this is good enough for now. We've touched upon kind of all the main aspects of Drone Harmony and how it's different from the original version of Drone Harmony 1, that has had many iterations, but now we're switching to this brand new app. And let's go now back quickly to our presentation and talk a little bit about kind of the future, and then we can conclude the webinar and start the Q&A. Start my share screen from the tablet right here. Okay. Now I will return to share my screen on the laptop. Okay, so we've looked at the app in quite some detail. I haven't shown you the smart controller. Basically, what you get in the smart controller is you download the APK, install it, and then Drone Harmony will run in exactly the same way that you've seen on my little Sony tablet here. It's on the smart controller. Of course, in the case of the smart controller, there's no cables to connect. The smart controller is paired with the M300, or in some cases the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced, or any other drone that supports the smart controllers of DJI. So there's no cables to connect to an RC or anything. The app just runs directly on the controller. And when you turn on the drone, the telemetry and all the things that happened when I connected the drone here to my tablet just happen automatically when you turn on the drone. Let me turn the drone off to have quieter ambience here. So let's talk a little bit about the outlook for 2022. So of course, the Drone Harmony mobile app is currently out in its first iteration. We've been in beta for a short while, not for sure, quite a long while actually by now. So one thing I want to say is thank you to many beta testers that have provided feedback already. And a lot of this feedback has already been integrated, but a lot more is coming. So although this is a new app, it's definitely quite a rich and let's say an app that has many significant advantages over the original one. But as is always with Drone Harmony products, they're very dynamic, where we have a lot on our roadmap for improvements of the mobile app as well. Certain things I want to touch upon is as we've released the Drone Harmony mobile app version 2, we're actually gearing up to design various specific industry-related products for the Drone Harmony mobile app version 2. One thing is we will introduce an electric utilities product that will be a separate kind of a version of the Drone Harmony mobile app that will allow to capture very high detail, let's say, information around power utility infrastructure, things like power poles, power lines, etc., with a dedicated scene-centered workflow for that use case, including import options, visualization options. So some teasers are currently visible to you on the presentation. So that's one thing. If you have interest in that, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to provide to you some information on kind of timelines and some and answer some questions you might have. So if you're interested in integrated flight automation to inspect this kind of infrastructure, we are gearing up towards releasing a product in this space. To those of you who are interested in who come from other companies with cloud applications, we remind you that we have a Drone Harmony API that allows any company with a cloud application to embed a lot of the features that or essentially all the features of the Drone Harmony platform within another platform. So if you're coming from the space of image analysis, business intelligence for infrastructure inspection, or if you're a pilot network or something like that, and you would like to have data acquisition kind of tailored and built into your products, we have a comprehensive API that's just always growing, and both in terms of the number of implementers as well as the feature set, and we invite you to reach out to us and have a conversation on that. And as a last slide, I just wanted to thank everybody again for participating, and as a small thank you give to everybody who has taken the time. We would like to provide also a discount for our yearly professional licenses for the entire Drone Harmony platform. If you're interested, please reach out to sales@droneharmony.com. We'll provide a 10% discount for anybody who's interested to start a new yearly professional license with us. And please reach out with some information about yourself, and our sales team will be happy to assist you with that. Some links that are relevant, of course, our website, our web app, and importantly, where to find Drone Harmony Mobile version 2 if you are interested in installing it on a smart controller. As you may know, the smart controller does not come with the Play Store. That's why we need to provide a separate link to download an APK and install it. This is the link right here, smartcontroller.droneharmony.com. And of course, for support, please always write to us to support@droneharmony.com. So with this, I'd like to conclude this part of the webinar. I'm grateful to everybody who's taken the time, and we can now start the Q&A. So I'll switch here over to the Q&A. One question that's been asked is, do we plan to support drones from other manufacturers? So the answer to this question is yes. We are currently in discussion with at least 2 drone manufacturers on the market. We are, let's say, in initial integration stages with one of them, and we will announce some of these things in the near future. In Drone Harmony, we have kind of 2 levels of integration. One of them is related to flight planning only, so you'll be able to plan flights using the Drone Harmony flight planning tools, the web app as well as the mobile app, and then export mission files to be executed by other platforms. So that's one level of integration, and we're actually working on several such projects, but we're also looking into deep integration with some platforms, which means that the Drone Harmony mobile app will be able to execute those missions as well. We're monitoring the market, and we're trying to see what kind of makes sense for us in the short and medium term. There's a lot of very promising hardware that comes out outside of DJI. Of course, DJI remains kind of dominant force in this market, but we're more than interested in such collaboration. So another kind of shout out that I would like to make is, if there are some people here from drone manufacturers who would be more than interested in having a conversation on potential integrations. And apart from that, some additional announcements in that regard will come up later this year. The next question is, how popular is the app for cell tower inspections? So this is an excellent question. So Drone Harmony Mobile, the original version of Drone Harmony, had a dedicated skin for cell tower inspections. It was called Cell Tower Scan. This version of the application still includes Cell Tower Scan, so the old version of the app, version 1. We're currently building the version 2 of Cell Tower Scan. So soon, so customers that are used to using Drone Harmony for cell tower inspection, there's many of them around the world, are actually continuing to use the old version of Drone Harmony at the moment. But we're actually now building its kind of version 2 counterpart. So roughly in summertime, we expect to have a first version of that available. And we expect that to kind of replace the previous version of that. Cell tower inspections are definitely very much in the core of both of our business strategic interests and what we actually develop for. So next question is, which easily packable drone do you recommend for building photogrammetry? One can easily carry on an airplane. From our experience, so the question depends a little bit on the type of resolution you want to achieve for the building inspections. It's definitely advised to fly something with a good sensor, so something from, let's say, Phantom 4 level upward. We're looking at kind of the new drone that DJI just released, Mavic 3 Pro, Mavic Mini 3 Pro. Could be an interesting solution for that. At the moment, it's not clear if it will have an SDK though, so it's not yet integrated. Obviously, it's just been released. Other drones that are good for that are Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced. And then beyond that, I would go already for higher-end drones than that. Is there an educational license reserved for universities? Yeah, we recommend that you reach out to our sales team. We have some good experience working with academic institutions. So maybe I'll add another comment. We have 2 more minutes before the hour. To those of you who are interested in using the old version of Drone Harmony for any reason, maybe you would like to take some time before you transition to the new version because you need to learn a little bit the interface and you want to have a safe option in Drone Harmony version 1 if you're used to the interface, etc. There's no problem to have both versions of the software installed at the same time on the device. So in particular, what you can do is when you update Drone Harmony, either from the Play Store or you install version 2, you have a link to download version 1 within the app. It's in the More menu. It's in the right part of the menu. You can go there and download version 1, and you can have both of those installed simultaneously on your device without issue. One thing that's always good to bear in mind, when you're using a drone field and you're connected to the drone, it's always good to have only one of those apps active at any given moment in time. As you could see, even today, I had both apps opened, and it took me a while until the drone realized what app it wants to connect to. It's not really a risk. It's not really a big issue, but that's one thing to remember. But the main point is there's no problem having both Android version 1 and Android version 2 installed at the same time on your device. You can easily do so and use interchangeably both apps. For example, for cell towers, use version 1 until we have the new version, and for version and for anything else, essentially, we would recommend switching to version 2.